Ryan Cooper adjusted the borrowed Rolex on his wrist for the 10th time that night. He couldn't tell if it looked too loose or too fake, but what did it matter? In the dim lighting of the Velvet Room, the trendiest cocktail lounge in Manhattan, appearances were everything, and tonight, Ryan needed to look like someone. Bro, relax, his best friend Marcus muttered from across the table. She's not gonna check the serial number on the watch. Just act like you own the place. Easy for Marcus to say. Marcus actually did own things, like a steady job, a reliable car, and an apartment not shared with two college buddies who still ate ramen noodles for dinner. Ryan, on the other hand, worked at a used car lot in Queens. He wasn't broke, but he definitely wasn't the kind of man who got noticed in a place like this, and that was the problem. Because across the bar sat her, the girl who had walked in 20 minutes earlier, catching the attention of every man in the room without even trying. She wasn't draped in sequins or designer logos like half the crowd here. No, she wore something simpler, a fitted black dress, minimal jewelry, hair pulled into a sleek ponytail. Understated, but elegant. Her name's Lauren, Marcus whispered, scrolling on his phone like the amateur detective he was. She comes here a lot. Lives uptown. Works in, well, I couldn't find much. But she's got money. Like, serious money. Ryan's pulse quickened. Money. Of course she did, he should have looked away right then. Should have accepted that she was out of his league. But something about the way she stirred her drink absent-mindedly, almost bored, like she was tired of every guy trying too hard around her, made him think maybe, just maybe, she wanted something different. Tonight's your shot, man, Marcus said. But go big or go home. Girls like that don't look twice at regular dudes. Ryan swallowed hard, his pride wrestling with reality. Regular dudes. That was exactly what he was. But what if he didn't have to be? What if, just for one night, he could be someone else, someone richer, smoother, better dressed? Someone she'd actually notice. He straightened his blazer, rented, not bought, and took a breath. He told himself it wasn't lying. Not really. It was just marketing. Selling an image. First impressions mattered, right? With that thought, Ryan stood, walked across the lounge, and leaned casually on the bar next to her. Quiet night? He asked, his voice smooth, rehearsed. Lauren glanced at him, her eyes sharp, assessing. For a split second, Ryan thought she'd dismiss him like every other guy. But instead, she smirked. Quiet enough, she said. You? Ryan smiled, flashing teeth he hoped looked confident. Well, I was supposed to meet a client, but he's running late. Happens when you're juggling too many deals, you know? It was the first lie. Small, simple. But the kind that snowballed. Lauren raised an eyebrow. Deals. Real estate, Ryan lied smoothly, surprising even himself. High-end properties. Keeps me busy. Her expression didn't change much, but her interest sharpened just slightly. Sounds impressive. Ryan's chest swelled. For the first time in his life, he felt like he had her attention, and that's when the thrill hit him. The rush of being someone else, someone worth noticing. It was supposed to be just one little white lie. But Ryan had no idea that by the end of the night, he'd be tangled in a story so big, so dangerous to his heart, that it would change everything. Because what Ryan didn't know was that Lauren had secrets too. And hers were a lot bigger than his fake Rolex. The next Saturday, Ryan stood outside a luxury car rental place in Brooklyn, trying not to sweat through his only decent shirt. Marcus leaned against his beat-up Honda, arms crossed. You're out of your mind. Ryan shoved his hands into his pockets. I just need it for one night. She thinks I'm some real estate hotshot. I can't pull up in the Civic with a cracked bumper. Marcus sighed. Bro, you can barely pay rent. How you gonna afford a BMW for the night? I'll put it on the credit card, Ryan said. Future Ryan will deal with it. Marcus shook his head but didn't argue. They both knew Ryan was too far gone. By 6 o'clock, Ryan was behind the wheel of a sleek, rented BMW i8, the kind of car that practically purred confidence. He'd even borrowed one of Marcus's designer suits, the one Marcus wore to his cousin's wedding. It was slightly tight in the shoulders, but it worked. Lauren had agreed to dinner, and as he pulled up outside the restaurant she suggested, a swanky rooftop place with fairy lights and panoramic views of the skyline, Ryan felt like a fraud stepping onto a stage. Lauren was already there, waiting near the entrance, her black dress replaced with a deep red number that made him momentarily forget every lie. She smiled when she saw him, tilting her head in approval at the car. "Nice ride," she said, slipping into the passenger seat. Ryan grinned, gripping the steering wheel like it was glued to his palms. "Thanks. Just one of a few I rotate." Lie number 2, dinner was smooth, smoother than Ryan expected. Lauren was funny, sharp, and carried herself with the kind of quiet authority that made Ryan lean in. But every time she asked about his work, Ryan dug himself deeper. Talking about properties in Miami he'd never seen, business trips he'd never taken, investments that didn't exist, and yet, Lauren didn't look convinced. She smiled politely, asked questions, but her eyes, those calm, calculating eyes, seemed to be studying him, testing him. At one point, she set her wine glass down and leaned forward. "So tell me, Ryan. Why real estate?" Ryan froze for a split second. He thought of the truth, that he'd fallen into selling used cars because it was the only job he could get after dropping out of college. That he still called his mom once a week, promising her he was figuring things out. That he wanted more, but didn't know how to get there, but the truth wouldn't impress her. "It's in my family," he lied. "My dad was in real estate. I guess I picked it up from him." Lauren's gaze softened slightly, but there was something unreadable in her smile. By the time he dropped her off, Ryan felt like a man balancing on stilts. One wrong move, and everything would come crashing down, yet when Lauren leaned in and kissed his cheek before slipping out of the car, Ryan's heart soared. The lie was working, and for the first time in years, Ryan felt like maybe, just maybe, he was worth noticing. For the next few weeks, Ryan lived in two realities. By day, he was still hustling at the used car lot in Queens, wearing oil-stained polos and haggling with customers over dented sedans. But by night, or whenever Lauren was around, he became Ryan, the real estate mogul, dressed in borrowed suits, driving rented cars, and spinning stories he hoped sounded believable. Marcus was his unwilling accomplice. His wardrobe shrank as Ryan borrowed more ties and shirts. His credit card collected more rental fees. "Man, she better be worth it," Marcus muttered one night as Ryan tried on a navy blazer. "At this point, you're basically paying to audition for your own downfall." Ryan adjusted his tie in the mirror. "You don't get it. She's different. She makes me want to be more broke?" Marcus shot back. Ryan ignored him. With Lauren, things only got deeper. She laughed at his jokes, leaned into his stories, and never once looked bored. Yet, there were moments, little pauses, where Ryan swore she knew. Like the night she asked casually, "What's your favorite city you've traveled to for business?" Ryan almost choked. He hadn't been on a plane in years. Miami," he said quickly. Lauren's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Miami, huh? You should take me sometime." Ryan laughed it off, but sweat prickled the back of his neck. The truth was, he liked her more than he ever expected. She wasn't just beautiful, she was sharp, compassionate, quick-witted. The more time they spent together, the more Ryan wanted to drop the act and show her who he really was, but the fear of losing her, the fear that real Ryan wasn't enough, kept him tangled in the lie. One evening, while walking her to her apartment, Lauren suddenly stopped in front of her building. The streetlight caught her face, highlighting a seriousness Ryan hadn't seen before. "Ryan," she said softly, "can I ask you something real?" His heart skipped. "Of course. Do you ever feel trapped? Like you're living in a box you didn't choose?" Ryan blinked, stunned. It was almost as if she were describing him. But he forced a smile. "Not really. I mean, I've got freedom. Money gives you that, you know?" Lauren studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Interesting. When she kissed him goodnight, Ryan's chest ached, because for the first time, he realized Lauren wasn't just listening. She was testing, and he didn't know how much longer he could keep passing. Ryan thought he was the only one wearing a mask. But Lauren had her own. It started with little things. A comment here, a slip there. One night, while they were walking past Fifth Avenue, Lauren stopped in front of a boutique with glass walls and mannequins in gowns that cost more than Ryan's entire monthly paycheck. Funny, she murmured. I remember when my father bought me one of those for prom. I hated it. Too sparkly. Ryan chuckled, assuming she was joking. Your dad must have been pretty generous. She smiled faintly. You could say that. Then she walked ahead without explaining. Another time, when they were having dinner at a mid-tier Italian spot, Ryan panicked when his card nearly declined. Lauren noticed his flinch but didn't say a word. Instead, she reached into her clutch and covered the bill effortlessly with a black card Ryan had only ever seen in movies. You didn't have to, he began, she interrupted with a shrug. What's mine is yours. Right? Ryan's throat went dry. That phrase, what's mine is yours, echoed louder than the clink of dishes around them. It gnawed at him. At night, when he was back in his cramped room, Ryan stared at the ceiling and replayed every interaction. Was she onto him? Was she laughing behind his back? Or worse, was she testing him the way he was testing her, but then she'd text something sweet, like, can't wait to see you tomorrow, or bring that smile I like, and Ryan would shove down the doubt. Still, Marcus wasn't buying it. Dude, wake up. Marcus warned one Friday when Ryan begged to borrow his watch. This girl is not who you think. Nobody drops a black card at dinner like it's a coupon unless they've got serious money. What if she's the one playing you? Ryan scoffed. Come on. She's a preschool teacher. Marcus raised an eyebrow. A preschool teacher with a card limit bigger than my student loans? Sure. But Ryan refused to believe it. To him, Lauren was too genuine, too grounded. She had to be who she said she was. Still, cracks were forming. The final straw came at a charity gala Ryan only attended because Marcus scored him a ticket through work. Ryan had spent the whole day prepping, new suit, rented, luxury cologne, borrowed, and even rehearsed lines about his latest investment project. But when he walked into the ballroom, jaw slack at the chandeliers and champagne fountains, his eyes nearly popped out, because there, across the room, in a silk emerald gown that shimmered under the lights, was Lauren, not as a guest's date, not as someone sneaking in, but as the center of attention. People, important people, were coming up to her, hugging her, smiling at her like she belonged. Like she was one of them, and Ryan, frozen by the hors d'oeuvres table, realized he wasn't the only one living a lie. Ryan could hardly taste the champagne flute in his hand. His heart was hammering too hard. Lauren wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. She looked radiant, moving gracefully through the crowd of socialites as if she'd been born in that ballroom. People leaned in when she spoke. They laughed at her jokes. They clinked glasses with her like she wasn't just part of the event, she was the event. Ryan stayed in the corner, pretending to scroll on his phone, trying not to look like a guy who didn't belong. But inside, he was crumbling when Lauren finally spotted him. Her eyes widened. Then, without missing a beat, she excused herself from a conversation with a senator and walked toward him. Ryan, she said, her voice warm, though her eyes were sharp. What are you doing here? Ryan cleared his throat, fumbling. Work connection. A friend got me a ticket. Lauren tilted her head, studying him. Interesting. He forced a laugh. What about you? Don't tell me you crash fancy galas on weekends. Instead of laughing back, Lauren smiled in a way that made Ryan's stomach twist. Let's just say I've been coming to these things for a long time. Ryan blinked. But, you said you were a preschool teacher. I am, she said smoothly, sipping her champagne. But teaching isn't all I do. Her vagueness only made his nerves worse. He tried to keep the act alive, desperate not to lose ground. Well, then maybe I should have asked you for a job, he joked. Lauren's lips curved into a grin, but her gaze didn't waver. Maybe you should have. They stared at each other for a long beat, the air thick with unsaid truths. Finally, Ryan leaned closer, lowering his voice. Lauren. Are you messing with me? Because sometimes I feel like you know things. Like you're not telling me everything. For a moment, her expression softened. Almost tender. Then she leaned in so close he could feel her breath against his ear. Ryan, she whispered, you're not the only one who knows how to play a role. Then she pulled back, gave him a wink, and disappeared back into the crowd. Ryan stood frozen, the words slicing through his chest. For weeks, he'd thought he was the one in control, the actor, the manipulator. But now, watching Lauren glide back into the throng of millionaires, he realized something terrifying. He wasn't the player, he was the pawn. Ryan couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, Lauren's words echoed in his head, you're not the only one who knows how to play a role. He stared at the ceiling of his borrowed luxury apartment, the one he'd pretended to own, and for the first time, the place felt claustrophobic. It wasn't a palace. It was a lie with furniture. The next morning, he did something reckless. He followed her. Lauren wasn't hard to track. She drove a modest silver sedan, not the kind of car you'd expect someone who breezed through galas to own. Ryan tailed her across town, half ashamed, half obsessed, but when she parked, his jaw nearly dropped. She didn't stop at some boutique or cozy teacher's apartment. Instead, she pulled up to a gated estate, sprawling lawns, marble fountains, a security booth at the front. Ryan sat frozen in his car as she typed in a code and the gates swung open like she owned the place. Because maybe she did. Ryan's pulse raced. What the hell? He muttered. He drove off before anyone could notice, but his brain spun all day. That evening, when Lauren texted dinner? My treat. Ryan replied instantly, yes. They met at a rooftop restaurant, one Ryan would normally have to beg a friend for a reservation. Lauren? She simply smiled at the hostess, and suddenly they were seated by the window with champagne on the way. Ryan stared at her, trying to fit the pieces together. Lauren, he said finally, I have to ask. Who are you, really? Her fork paused mid-air. Then she set it down carefully. Who am I? I'm the girl you lied to about owning a penthouse. The guy with a Lamborghini that turned out to be his cousin's. The guy who said his dad was an investor, when he's really a what was it, mechanic. Ryan's stomach clenched. She knew. She knew everything. But before he could stammer out an excuse, Lauren leaned back in her chair, eyes glinting with something between humor and challenge. Here's the thing, Ryan, she said softly. I never cared about your car. Or your apartment. Or your little performance. He blinked. Then. Why? Lauren's smile widened, but this time it wasn't sweet. It was razor sharp. Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. And now. I think it's my turn. Ryan froze, champagne sweating in his hand. For the first time, he realized he hadn't been chasing a girl out of his league. He'd been walking straight into a test. Ryan wasn't sure if it was the champagne or Lauren's words that made his head spin, but suddenly the rooftop restaurant felt like a stage, and he was the full center spotlight. Your turn? He managed to choke out. Lauren leaned forward, resting her chin lightly on her palm. You see, Ryan. You're not the only one who grew up learning to wear masks. Lauren, cut the riddles. Who are you? Her laugh was soft, almost pitying. You really don't know, do you? And then she said it, my last name isn't just Lauren Matthews. It's Lauren Matthews Wells. Ryan frowned, blinking. The name meant nothing until she gave him a moment. Then it clicked. Wells. Wells Enterprises. One of the biggest privately owned corporations in the Midwest. His mom had clipped an article about their donation to a children's hospital. His cousin once tried to apply for a scholarship they funded. He sat back hard in his chair. Yes. She took a sip of her wine like she'd been waiting for this moment. The heiress. The trust fund kid. The untouchable. Ryan's throat was dry. But you live in a regular apartment. You drive a 10-year-old sedan? She finished for him with a smirk. That's on purpose. I wanted a life where people didn't know me as just a Wells. I wanted to see who treated me like a person, not a paycheck. Her gaze sharpened. And what do I find? A guy lying about being rich to impress me. Cute, don't you think? Ryan's heart pounded in his chest. He could feel the blood rushing to his ears. He wanted to argue, to say she wasn't being fair. But how could he? He'd built their entire relationship on borrowed cars and fake suits. Lauren. I didn't. Yes, you did, she cut him off, voice cool but not cruel. You thought money was the only way to win me. But here's the twist, Ryan, I already had money. What I was looking for was honesty. The words hit him harder than any slap. Ryan sat in silence, staring at her across the candlelit table. For once, he had nothing to say. Lauren leaned back, crossing her arms. So now you know who I am. The real question is, who are you without all the lies? Ryan barely remembered the Uber ride home. The city lights blurred into streaks against the window as his thoughts spiraled. He'd never felt smaller in his life. She was the heiress. She. Not him. Not the one who rented Bentleys by the hour and borrowed cufflinks from his buddy Marcus. No, Lauren had been the millionaire all along, and she saw straight through him. By the time he unlocked his apartment, his chest felt heavy. He tossed his blazer onto the couch, pulled off the fake Rolex, and stared at it like it was mocking him. A cheap knockoff he'd once worn with pride. Now it looked like a collar of shame. He sat at the kitchen table, head in his hands. The words replayed. What I was looking for was honesty, honesty. The one thing he hadn't given her. The next few days were brutal. Ryan texted her once, then deleted it. He drafted an email, but couldn't hit send. He even stood outside her apartment building one evening, palms sweaty, rehearsing apologies. But when he saw her through the glass doors, laughing with her friend, he froze. How could he just show up? What could he possibly say? Hey, remember me, the broke liar who pretended to be rich? Want to grab coffee? He laughed bitterly at himself and walked away. It was Marcus, his best friend and unwilling accomplice, who finally snapped him out of it. Dude, Marcus said, tossing a basketball at him during their usual Saturday pickup game. You look like you got hit by a bus. I might as well have, Ryan muttered, bouncing the ball half-heartedly. Marcus raised a brow. This about Lauren? Ryan didn't answer, which was answer enough. Marcus sighed. Man, I told you. You can't build something real on fake bricks. It always collapses. Ryan dropped the ball and sat on the bleachers. I screwed it up. She's amazing, and I couldn't just be me. I had to play dress up. Marcus sat beside him. So stop dressing up. Be the guy she didn't get to see. The one who works 2 jobs, the one who sketches logos at 2 a.m., the one who hustles but doesn't quit. That's the Ryan people root for. Ryan swallowed hard. Marcus was right. But it wasn't just about winning her back, it was about proving to himself that he was enough without the rented life. That night, Ryan pulled out his old notebook, the one filled with designs for a startup clothing line he'd shelved years ago. He hadn't touched it in months. Maybe it was time to stop faking wealth and start building something real. He wasn't sure if Lauren would ever forgive him. But at least, if she looked at him again one day, he wanted her to see Ryan Daniels, not the lie he wore like a suit. Ryan didn't text, didn't call. Instead, he worked. For the first time in years, his nights weren't spent Googling luxury cars for rent near me or scrolling Instagram for lifestyle shots to copy. He was sketching. Doodling ideas for hoodies, streetwear jackets, sneakers. His little apartment became a mess of fabric swatches and coffee cups. And Marcus teased him that it looked like Project Runway meets a frat house. But Ryan was serious. He reached out to a local printer about producing a small batch of t-shirts with his designs. He researched e-commerce platforms late into the night. He even pulled an extra shift at the bar to afford his first real order. Each little step felt more satisfying than any fake Rolex or borrowed Bentley. For the first time in forever, the hustle wasn't about impressing anyone, it was about creating something his. Still, Lauren haunted him. Every time he opened Instagram and saw her face pop up in his feed, smiling at charity galas, walking her rescue dog, speaking at community events, his chest tightened, but instead of drowning in regret, he let it fuel him. If she was the kind of woman who built libraries for kids instead of flaunting money, then he wanted to be the kind of man who stood beside her, not behind a mask. 3 months in, Ryan launched his online shop. The night it went live, he sat at his laptop, refreshing the page every few minutes. The first order came from Marcus, who proudly posted a selfie in the shirt with the caption "Support your boy or fight me." The second order was from a stranger in Chicago. Then another from someone in Texas. Ryan grinned so wide his cheeks hurt. It wasn't much, but it was real. Weeks passed, and little by little, word spread. A local streetwear blogger featured his designs. A boutique in Brooklyn agreed to carry a few pieces on consignment. Sales trickled in, then doubled. Ryan wasn't rich, not even close, but for the first time in his life, he felt rich in something that mattered. One night, as he closed his laptop after packing up orders, he whispered to himself, "This is who I should have shown her." Lauren, meanwhile, wasn't as far away as he thought. At a charity fashion show in Soho, she flipped through the event catalog and froze at a familiar name, designed by Ryan Daniels. Her heart thudded. She knew it had to be him. She turned her eyes toward the small corner booth displaying a modest rack of t-shirts and hoodies. And there he was, not in a rented tux or faking suave with champagne, but in a plain black tee with ink smudges on his hands, laughing with 2 college kids who were checking out his line. No pretense. No flash. Just Ryan, and for the first time, Lauren wondered if maybe, just maybe, she hadn't seen the whole truth of him after all. Ryan was packing up hoodies into a cardboard box when he felt it, the shift in the air. Like someone had just walked into the room who didn't belong to the noise and chatter of the fashion show. He looked up and froze. Lauren, she wasn't in a designer gown tonight. No gala jewels. Just a cream sweater, jeans, and her hair tucked behind her ears. But she carried herself with that same quiet confidence, the kind that used to make him stutter through his fake stories. Now, though, there was no Lamborghini to hide behind. No fake watch glinting on his wrist. Just him. "Hey," she said softly, almost as if she wasn't sure she should. Ryan's throat dried up. He dropped the tape dispenser and scrambled to pick it up. "Lauren." Hi. You, what are you doing here?" She gave a small smile. "I could ask you the same thing." She gestured at the clothes. "This is yours?" He nodded. "Yeah. My line. Started small. Still small, but..." He trailed off, suddenly aware of how ridiculous it might sound compared to the world she came from, but Lauren's eyes weren't mocking. They were curious. "I'm impressed," she said. Ryan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Not exactly what you expected from the guy who once claimed his family owned a yacht in Monaco, huh?" That made her laugh. Really laugh. And for a moment, Ryan forgot the sting of their last conversation. "I'm not here to make fun of you," she said, her tone gentler now. "Honestly, I'm glad. I wasn't sure I'd ever see the real you." Her words landed like a punch. The real him. He shifted uncomfortably, then met her gaze. "I owe you an apology, Lauren. I lied. I pretended. I thought if I showed you me, it wouldn't be enough. Turns out, I wasn't even enough for myself." Silence stretched between them, filled with the distant thump of music from the runway. Finally, Lauren spoke. "Ryan, I didn't walk away because you weren't enough. I walked away because you wouldn't let me meet the man underneath all the flash. That's what hurt. Her honesty cracked something open in him. He rubbed the back of his neck. I'm trying now. I don't know where this will go, but at least it's mine. No borrowed cars, no fake mansions. Just sweatshirts and coffee stains. Lauren studied him, her eyes softening. That's more attractive than you realize. And for the first time in months, Ryan felt a flicker of something he hadn't dared to hope for, a second chance. They ended up outside, leaning against the concrete steps behind the convention center. The night air was cool, carrying faint echoes of laughter and car horns from downtown. Ryan sat with his elbows on his knees, sneakers tapping restlessly. Lauren stood beside him, arms crossed, but not defensively, more like she was holding herself together. So, she said finally, what's your plan with this brand? Where do you want it to go? Ryan shrugged. Honestly? I don't know. I started because I needed to prove I could do something real, something mine. Now it feels like maybe it's the first thing I haven't lied about in years. Lauren smiled faintly. That's a good start. He looked up at her, hesitant. Do you hate me? She shook her head. No. I was hurt, disappointed. Angry, sure. But hate? No. If I hated you, I wouldn't be standing here. The words hit Ryan like sunlight breaking through clouds. Lauren, I don't expect you to just forgive me. I don't even expect you to give me another chance. But if there's even a sliver of possibility, I swear I'll stop. She held up a hand, cutting him off, her eyes firm. Don't swear. Don't make promises. Just be consistent. That's all I care about. Ryan swallowed. Consistent? Yes. Not the Ryan who borrows a car one week, then disappears the next. Not the guy spinning stories to impress people. I want the version of you who builds things brick by brick, even if it's slow, even if it's not glamorous. That's the man I'd trust. Her tone wasn't harsh, but it was resolute, and Ryan knew it was a lifeline. He nodded slowly. Then that's the guy I'll be. For a moment, silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was possible. Lauren finally sat down next to him on the steps, their shoulders almost brushing. I'll come to your next show. As myself, not as the heiress. And I'll be watching. Not what you say, but what you do. Ryan exhaled, a nervous laugh escaping. Guess I'm on probation, huh? She grinned. Something like that. They sat there in the quiet city night, not lovers, not strangers, but something fragile in between, the beginning of honesty, and for Ryan, that was more valuable than all the fake mansions in the world. The next show wasn't in a glittering convention center. It was a modest setup in a converted warehouse. The kind with exposed brick and hanging Edison bulbs. The kind where young designers either got discovered or got buried. Ryan was nervous. His team was small, just him, 2 seamstresses, and a graphic designer who moonlighted as a DJ. He couldn't fake polish here. Every flaw would show. Backstage, a model tapped her heel impatiently. Ryan, this zipper's stuck. Another called out, hey, one of the seams is unraveling on this dress. His chest tightened. Everything was going wrong at once. Okay, he said, grabbing a sewing kit with trembling hands. He'd stitched before, but never under pressure like this. His palms were sweaty, needle shaking as he tried to fix the seam. From the corner of his eye, he caught Lauren. She wasn't dressed like an heiress tonight, just jeans and a black blazer, blending into the background. But her gaze was sharp. Watching. Measuring. His old instincts screamed at him, smile. Pretend everything's fine. Bluff until it's over, but he stopped. His hands lowered, and he admitted to the team, I messed up. I should have double-checked every piece yesterday. That's on me. But we've still got time. Let's fix what we can. The models blinked at him, surprised by his honesty. No excuses. No drama. Just accountability, and something shifted. One model rolled up her sleeves. Hand me the kit. I know how to sew. Another said, we'll swap the order. Put me out first while you fix the other one. The room, once frantic, began to hum with focused teamwork. Ryan's chest loosened. This was different. Real, out in the audience, Lauren crossed her legs and allowed herself the smallest smile. When the first model hit the runway, the dress shimmered under the lights. By the time the finale look walked out, the one Ryan had nearly ruined minutes earlier, the crowd was clapping, cheering even. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. Backstage, Ryan let out a shaky laugh. Sweat clung to his neck, but he felt lighter. Stronger. He'd faced the fire without hiding. As the crowd trickled out, Lauren approached. She looked at him for a long moment before saying softly, That was the guy I was waiting to see. Ryan's throat tightened. No mansion, no Ferrari, no fake lifestyle, just him. And for once, it was enough. The show had ended, the warehouse slowly emptying until only stray glitter and fabric scraps remained on the floor. Ryan sat on a folding chair, catching his breath, his heart still pounding from the adrenaline. Lauren approached, holding 2 paper cups of coffee she'd snagged from the vendor table. She handed him one. You look like you just ran a marathon. He chuckled. Feels like it. He took a sip. It was lukewarm, bitter, but oddly comforting. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence wasn't awkward this time, it was weighty, filled with things unsaid. Finally, Ryan cleared his throat. Lauren. I owe you something. Actually, I owe you a lot. But tonight, I want to give you one thing I've never given you before. She tilted her head. What's that? The real me. Her eyes flickered. Cautious but curious, Ryan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. No cars borrowed from cousins. No fake suits. No bluffing. Just me, a guy who once thought lies were the only way to get noticed. And a guy who's tired of it. Lauren studied him. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't frowning. She was listening. He swallowed, nerves tightening his throat. So here's the deal. I want to see you again. Not at some gala, not behind some disguise. Just us. Dinner. I'll even cook. Warning, I burn toast half the time, but I'm getting better with pasta. Her lips curved into a slow smile. You're actually asking me out with the promise of burnt toast? Hey, he said with a grin, at least it's honest advertising this time. She laughed, a real laugh, not the polite one she'd given him months ago when he bragged about his villa in the Hamptons. And the sound of it eased something in his chest. Lauren tucked her hair behind her ear. Okay, Ryan. Dinner at your place. But just so you know, I don't care about toast. I care about consistency. Don't show me the honest version tonight and then slip back into the performance tomorrow. His voice was steady when he answered. No masks. Not anymore. And for the first time since this crazy game between them had begun, Ryan felt like he was finally playing for keeps. Ryan's apartment looked nothing like the mansion Lauren had once assumed he lived in. The place was small, 1 bedroom, barely enough space for the second-hand couch and a leaning bookshelf filled with dog-eared paperbacks. He'd spent the entire morning scrubbing, vacuuming, and lighting a candle that claimed to smell like ocean breeze but actually just smelled like soap. He wanted it to be perfect. But as soon as he opened the door and saw Lauren standing there, casual jeans, a soft cream sweater, hair pulled into a ponytail, he realized she wasn't looking for perfection. She was looking for him. Wow, she said, stepping inside. This place is cozy. Translation, tiny, Ryan teased, shutting the door behind her. She grinned. I like tiny. It's real. Dinner, however, was another story. Ryan had planned spaghetti, simple enough. But somehow the noodles stuck together in a giant clump, the sauce was too salty, and the garlic bread leaned closer to charcoal than golden brown. Lauren sat at the small kitchen table, watching him hustle between the stove and the sink. "Are you wrestling with the pasta?" "Don't judge me," Ryan groaned, trying to untangle the sticky mess with a fork. "This pasta has a personal vendetta against me." She laughed, covering her mouth. "I think it's winning." Finally, he dumped the creation onto 2 plates, set them down, and sighed. "Bon appetit." Or, "Good luck." Lauren twirled some noodles, lifted them, and made a face when they stuck together like glue. Then she took a bite anyway. Mmm. She pretended to chew thoughtfully. "Tastes like ambition." He dropped his head into his hands, laughing. "You don't have to be nice." "It's awful." "It's not awful," she said. Then softer, "It's honest. And that makes it better than any 5-star meal you could have faked." The words hit him harder than he expected. For so long, Ryan had thought he had to perform to earn her attention. Now, she was sitting in his little apartment, eating burnt pasta, and she looked happier than she ever had in all those glittering parties. They ate, they laughed, and when the plates were cleared, Ryan brought out dessert, a pint of ice cream and 2 spoons. They ate straight from the container, talking about little things, her favorite childhood book, his embarrassing karaoke moment, dreams they'd never admitted out loud. At some point, the candle sputtered out, leaving them in the soft glow of the kitchen light. Lauren set her spoon down. "You know, I almost didn't say yes tonight. I thought maybe you'd slip into another story. Another mask." "And?" he asked, "and you didn't. You let me in." Ryan reached across the table, covering her hand with his. His voice was steady. "Lauren, I don't want to impress you anymore. I want to know you. That's it." For the first time since they'd met, there were no games. No borrowed cars, no luxury lies. Just a boy and a girl at a scratched-up table, sharing ice cream and something far sweeter, the truth. It was almost midnight when Ryan walked Lauren to her car. The night air was cool, the city quiet except for the occasional rumble of a passing car. He wanted to kiss her, but instead, he just held her hand a little longer before letting go. "Thanks for dinner," Lauren said, her eyes sparkling. "Best burnt pasta I've ever had." "Glad to set a new bar," Ryan teased, but his chest felt light, like something good was finally beginning. He watched her drive away, a smile still tugging at his lips. But as soon as he turned back toward his apartment building, his smile vanished. A figure was leaning against the brick wall near the entrance. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, with a grin that spelled nothing but trouble. "Long time no see, Richie Rich," the man said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Ryan froze. Trevor Banks. His old college friend, or more accurately, his old partner in schemes. The guy who'd taught him how to talk his way past security at clubs, borrow luxury cars for test drives, and sneak into high society events without an invitation. Ryan's stomach sank. Trevor was the last person he wanted anywhere near his new life. "What are you doing here?" Ryan asked, his tone sharp. Trevor pushed off the wall, smirking. "Heard you've been busy, man. Playing dress up with the rich and pretty? Wooing that gorgeous blonde, what's her name? Lauren?" Ryan's jaw clenched. "Leave her out of this." "Oh, relax. I'm not here to ruin your little romance." Trevor leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Unless, of course, you give me a reason to." Ryan's fists curled. "What do you want?" "Money," Trevor said simply. "You owe me, Ryan. Remember the Palm Springs stunt? The watch you borrowed from that hedge fund guy? I kept my mouth shut then. I can keep it shut now, for a price." Ryan felt cold all over. Trevor knew too much. Every lie, every hustle, every fake lifestyle move Ryan had pulled before meeting Lauren. If Trevor so much as whispered the truth to her, everything he was building with Lauren would shatter. Trevor smiled wider, sensing victory. 10 grand. By Friday. Or your princess finds out her prince is a pauper. Ryan didn't answer. He just shoved past Trevor and stormed inside, his pulse hammering. For the first time since coming clean to Lauren, fear gripped him again. Not fear of losing her because of a lie he told, but because of a lie someone else was ready to sell. Ryan didn't sleep that night. Trevor's threat echoed in his mind like a drumbeat. 10 grand. Friday. Or Lauren finds out, but there was nothing left to hide. Lauren already knew the truth. And if there was one thing Ryan had learned these past weeks, it was that lies only gave people like Trevor power. So, the next evening, Ryan did something he never would have done months ago. He told Lauren everything. Every hustle. Every borrowed watch. Every fake party crash. Lauren sat across from him at her kitchen table, chin resting in her hand, listening without flinching. When he finished, he braced himself for disappointment. But instead, she leaned forward and took his hand. You think this changes how I see you? She asked softly. Ryan, you told me yourself, you're not that guy anymore. You could have kept this secret, but you didn't. That means more than your past ever could. Relief flooded him. But then he frowned. Trevor won't back off. He wants money. Lauren's expression hardened. Then he messed with the wrong people. They didn't have to wait long. Trevor showed up the next day, swaggering into the cafe where Lauren and Ryan had agreed to meet him. He had the same cocky grin, the same smug confidence of a man who thought he held all the cards. Ah, there they are. My favorite conman and his sugar queen, Trevor said, sliding into the booth. So, Ryan, did you bring my 10 grand? Or should I tell sweet Lauren here all about, you mean all about how you two used to scam your way through parties? Lauren cut in sharply. Trevor blinked, thrown off. Wait. He told you? Lauren leaned across the table, her eyes like steel. He told me everything. You have nothing. No leverage. No blackmail. Nothing. Trevor's smirk faltered, but he quickly recovered. Cute. But let's be real. Guys like Ryan don't change. I can make one call, and his whole past blows up. That call would be to the police, Lauren interrupted again, pulling out her phone. Because I have no problem showing them these. She tapped the screen, revealing a set of screenshots. Ryan stared. He hadn't even known she had done this. Lauren had dug through Trevor's own trail of scams. Fake credit cards. Shady rentals. Even unpaid warrants. Trevor's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare. Try me, Lauren said, her voice sharp as glass. You so much as breathe in Ryan's direction again, and I'll hand this to the cops myself. Then you'll be the one begging for mercy. Trevor stood abruptly, muttering under his breath, and stormed out of the cafe, his bravado shattered. Ryan just sat there, stunned. You did that for me? Lauren slipped her phone back in her bag and gave him a sly smile. Guess someone had to protect the reformed fake millionaire. Outside, the air felt lighter. Ryan walked her to her car again, but this time, he didn't let the moment pass. He stopped, turned her toward him, and held her hands. You've seen the worst of me, and somehow, you still look at me like I'm worth something, he said quietly. Lauren, I don't want to play games anymore. No pretending, no lies. Just me. Will you be my girlfriend? Lauren's lips curved into the kind of smile that made the rest of the world fade away. That's the easiest yes I've ever given. Ryan exhaled, laughing nervously, before pulling her into a hug. She melted into his arms, the kind of embrace that said this wasn't the end of something, it was the beginning. For the first time, Ryan didn't feel like he was pretending to live a dream. He was living it for real. The end. My name is Temille Deebs. Please subscribe and make sure to click on the notification button to know when we upload a new video. Also like, share and comment your thoughts. Thank you, and I will see you in my next video.